Welcome to Healthy Conversations, sharing the knowledge, experience, stories, and the wisdom of herbalists and other natural healers, with your host, Stephen Horn. Today's guest, Brigitte Mars. Hi, and welcome to Healthy Conversations. With me today is a longtime friend and a fellow herbalist, Brigitte Mars, a wonderful, very delightful person, as you can just see by her her background with being interested. And she is the co-author of a new book, Mental and Emotional Health. And we want to talk about this because it's a really important subject for me. So welcome, Brigitte.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's great to connect with you. And I so admire and appreciate the work you do as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times people are very interested in trying to help people with their, physical health problems. But I think it's important for herbalists to know how to work with people on a mental, emotional level. Let's talk a little bit about why it's important that we consider a person's mental and emotional state, even when they have a physical health problem.
Well, great question. Well, we do know that emotional health, like stress and lack of sleep, extreme pain can affect our physical body, but we need to look at that our physical body can affect our consciousness. In more Eastern medicine, when people have things like depression or extreme grief or memory loss, it is also treated with food, herbs, lifestyle. And here we go to a whole different kind of doctor when we have mental health issues. And I think that there are so many people who are on medication, maybe even hospitalized for mental conditions that maybe have food allergies. They're eating things that are causing brain inflammation. Maybe they've used or overused antibiotics that are killing their gut microbiome. We're learning that's where some of the neurotransmitters are made. It might be that they're have heavy metal toxicity that they're getting somewhere from aluminum cookware or aluminum foil or non-dairy coffee creamers that contain aluminum. It might be that they have a greater need for some amino acid or vitamin that they're not getting from their diet. And of course, trauma is such a big issue. But rather than thinking that the mind and body are separate, we know they're connected. And so the beauty of natural medicine is that we can bring together these time-tested traditions. And, when anyone says that they just practice traditional medicine, I like to remind them that Prozac is not really as traditional as some, St. John's wort or valerian or bacopa or any of the herbs that we have access to. And again, we know that people's psychological impairment is going to affect everything, their work, their ability to be a good parent, their creativity. And so we're all in this because we want to make the world a better place. And so helping people to overcome some of these things can be done with natural medicine. And we know that very often the long-term effect of being on medication often is hard on the kidneys, the liver. There's the whole issue of addiction. And does it really make you well? Because most holistic health practitioners are going to also recommend, what's your relationship with sugar? What kind of fats are you eating? Are you getting enough protein? Let's look at the allergens. Are you, stuck on eating the same thing and really lacking the diversity of nutrients? Because we know that our brain gets affected, and it's not just the brain, it's everything, the organs that help to clean our blood, our kidneys, our liver, our colon, our lymphatics, that if we're putting junk food and junk programming, which the media is quick to offer to us, that's going to affect how we think.
Yes, it is. And we can't separate the two. In fact, I think that's one of the big mistakes of modern medicine is to put psychiatry over here and medicine over here and not recognize, like all traditional cultures have, that there is a huge link between the two. And I always go as a chicken and egg situation, whether it's the mind affecting the body or the body affecting the mind, they're still linked. And we need to work on both. So obviously what you said about the nutrition is really important because there is a lot of research suggesting that our poor eating affects people's mental and emotional health. I don't know, did you ever read the book Food, Teens, and Behavior by Barbara Reed?
Probably should, because I have 3 teenage grandchildren. And of course,
Yeah, well, she was a parole officer in upper state New York, and she found that most of her juvenile probation ate just nothing but junk food. And she found if she could get them eating normal foods, that it helped them not get in trouble with the law again.
We do know a lot of crimes are committed under the influence of alcohol, but I think they're also committed under the influence of sugar or allergenic foods that get people all fired up. I mean, there's certainly numerous cases about people who went and bought a bunch of junk food at 7-Eleven and then they robbed the place, you know?
Right. It does imbalance your brain, and anybody who's gotten away from that is usually saying how much more clearly I can think and how much more stable my mood is when I'm not like yo-yoing my blood sugar up and down. And you also mentioned heavy metals. That's another big factor that can influence people so they cannot function properly mentally or emotionally.
Absolutely. And you think about heavy metals. I mean, there's so many places we're getting them from industrial pollutants. Again, so many people think, you know, that aluminum is okay. And I've known this, you've probably known this for decades. And now it's coming out in the mainstream media that aluminum is a very soft metal that can come out in our food. When they've done autopsies on people with Alzheimer's or dementia, they often have high levels of aluminum in their brain. We could also look at, you know, levels of lecithin in the brain, not getting enough fat. But, you know, people might be getting heavy metals from eating farm-raised foods, factory farm fish. I mean, it's really endless where they could be getting it. Some immunizations have contained heavy metals, and even things that are in their home. You know, I also think that people don't realize that all the chemicals they're putting on their body, they think, well, it's just hairspray or it's just perfume. But, you know, I'm actually calling people on, I talked about this in a class yesterday, that when you put chemicals on your scalp, which often do contain heavy metals, lead, or if you're using a bleach on your scalp and you're putting it on there and you're doing it once a month, like we know that our skin is very porous and that whatever we put on our skin can end up in the bloodstream. And again, it's not like the skin is that much of a barrier. It's often referred to as the third lung. What about the metals that people are inhaling, you know, cleaning products and chemicals that are being used in the beauty industry, even things like spraying pests? There's so many opportunities. So yes, heavy metals are certainly a factor.
Yeah, so obviously one of the first things people should do if they're having mental and emotional problems is to clean up their diet, eat more natural foods with less chemicals, and also just to try to avoid chemicals as much as possible, including, like you said, what you put on your skin and your hair, because volatile petrochemical kind of things, they're fat soluble, not water soluble. And so they do easily not only penetrate the skin, but because our brains are 50% fat by dry weight, they wind up attacking our nervous system, these fat soluble compounds, and causing, of course, not just mental and emotional issues, but neurological disorders as well. So I think that's a really important thing for people to consider, is that if you're depressed, you're probably not Prozac deficient. You really need to look at the whole big picture of your health when you're dealing with mental and emotional issues. What else would you like to add about this topic?
Well, I know we're going to talk about some individual topics, but, you know, if we draw from an Eastern perspective, we might look at depression and anger. There might be a correlation to what's going on with the liver. OCD, right. We might want to look at the stomach and spleen, bipolar conditions, insomnia. We might want to look at the heart, small intestines, and then we could look at extreme grief that is persistent for a long time. We might want to look at the health of the lungs and the large intestines. So it's really a beautiful, simple system. And I wanted to say one other thing, and this is a theory of mine, Stephen, but, you know, we know that hunters of old would kill an animal with gratitude, and whoever hunted that animal might eat the liver or the kidneys or the testicles or the heart of that animal for courage. And when people are eating farm-raised animals that are on drugs all the time and also living in hellacious conditions of fear and having your young taken away, while they're not weaned, and, being, if you live in a really hell realm, if the courage of an elk could give a hunter courage and strength, what about taking on the emotions of an animal? So my feeling is, if you do eat animal products, you want to support the farmers that are providing, as happy, healthy life for them as possible. So we're not imbibing fear and depression and a horrible, hellacious life. Even if it's just eggs or milk, that's not going to bring you good health from animals that live in a realm that is beyond comprehension as far as horrific smells and sounds and all of that.
Yeah, I think that comes a lot from our mechanistic view of the world, whereas Native people, they recognize kind of a spiritual interconnectedness of everything, and how everything connects everything. So they were grateful for the plants they harvested. They were grateful for the animals that they used. They treated all this with respect. But when you're factory farming, chickens or pigs or whatever in these giant pens where they hardly have any space to move or whatever, you're raising an interesting point. What does that do to the food, and how is that going to affect us biochemically if we're eating that stuff? It obviously is going to have an impact on us that's going to be different than if we were honoring nature, honoring life, and so forth. Well, I think that's a good place to end. Appreciate you broaching the subject to me, because I think it is something that is very overlooked in Western society, and is a big problem, because if you look at the number of people in our society who are depressed, anxious, suffering all of these neurological problems and everything, this is increasing, not decreasing. And so we really need to wake people up as to, the more holistic reasons behind why that's creating. So if you'd like to get a hold of the new book, Mental and Emotional Health by Brigitte Mars and Crystalline Fedler, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, Fiedler. It's available on Amazon. That's where I got my copy, and you can learn more about it from them. And we'll put a link to that book below. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to catch future episodes of Healthy Conversations. Help us educate others by sharing this video, and please feel free to share your own thoughts, comments, and questions below. To learn more, check out the links below.